And then she also told me that whenever you come to water, that you should approach it in a respectful manner. You introduce yourself to it, you go to it, you introduce yourself to it, you acknowledge it, and let it acknowledge you. So she said you don't just go and, jump into it. You don't just go and throw things into it, trash or anything. You just don't treat it that way. That our responsibility is to respect it and keep it clean, and how we approach it. And how we approach it, that's the way it's going to be with us.
Järgnev vestlus on salvestatud Mona Polaccaga. Mina kohtusin Monaga 2021. aasta talvel Arizona osariigis kogukonnas, mis on siis Tohonootami indiaanlaste reservaat. 2022. aasta talvel salvestasin käesoleva vestluse Monaga veest. Minul läks aega 27 eluaastat, et saada aru, mis on kõige olulisem. Kõige olulisem on vesi. Mona on käinud Eestis juba 1996. aastast, seda peaaegu iga aasta, ja nüüd järgneb vestlus Monaga tema suhtest veega.
Communia, I greet you. Good feelings in my heart, and I'm grateful for this day. And I'm Mona Polacca. I'm a Havasupaid, the people of the blue-green water, from down at the bottom of the Grand Canyon on my mother's side, and I'm from the Water Clan. And on my father's side, I'm Hopi, Tewa, and I'm on my paternal grandmother's side, I'm from the Sun Clan, and on my paternal grandfather's side, I'm from the Tobacco Clan. And my last name means butterfly, so that's basically who I am. That's my identity. I was born and raised on the Colorado River, on the western border of Arizona, on the Colorado River Indian Tribes Reservation. And so all my life, my upbringing has been to acknowledge and honor the water as a life-giving element, as the first foundation of life, mainly because of my mother, who always gave me instructions and told me about how to be, how to be with the water. How she said the water is, is the life giver. That's where we come from, within our mother's womb. We live in water. And when we're ready to be born, the water, it comes out, and we follow behind it into this world. And so we call it the first foundation of life. And so that's what I was told all my life. And then she also told me that whenever you come to water, that you should approach it in a respectful manner. You introduce yourself to it, you go to it, you introduce yourself to it, you acknowledge it, and let it acknowledge you. So she said you don't just go and, jump into it, you don't just go and throw things into it, trash or anything. You just don't treat it that way. That our responsibility is to respect it and keep it clean, and how we approach it. And how we approach it, that's the way it's going to be with us. So one of the main things I think that I feel is so important is that we have these places, we call them our sacred sites, sacred places, certain places that we say, that's maybe the place where a spring comes up out of the ground. That may be the place where the, like the mouth of the river, the place where the river begins, and where the waters come and make their presence, like, the headwaters of the various great rivers of Turtle Island, of this land we're from here in North America. Those places where the rivers began, the great Mississippi River, the place where it comes from, where it enters and becomes the river, to acknowledge that place. And then the whole watershed that river, takes care of, and all of the different tributaries of water coming into it, and how it flows, and where it flows through. And there's those places along that water that have a certain energetic power that our indigenous people have acknowledged, and over time, and so it's important for us to be aware of that, to be aware that when the river passes by your home, in your home state, maybe as it goes by, that's not where it began. It came from somewhere else, way upstream, and throughout its system, there are many other others that depend on it, not just us human beings, but the plant life, the animal life, that all depend on, and the things that live in the water, they all depend on it. And so it's important for us to recognize and acknowledge that, we are not the only ones who this water is for. It's for all of life. And it's very important for us to acknowledge that, and to be sure to remember that, we can't take all of it at once. We can't use it all at once. We can't use it for things where it can't be, the water won't be replenished, and we're using it at such a rapid rate that the water system of recharge it doesn't have the time to replenish itself as fast as we're using it. And so it's very important for us to acknowledge that, recognize that the way we use the water is going to determine our future of having water. So that's how I feel about it. That's my relationship with water.
Maybe some teachings from what you heard from your grandma or your mom about water when you were little, how they talked about it.
Mm-hmm. When I was little, that my mother, what I would witness or observe is in the morning, my mother, she would, the first, we're going to have our breakfast, but before she did that, she always took a cup of water and she sprinkled that water, on the floor, on the ground, sprinkled it first, and then she would always take a little bit of food off of, whatever we were eating. She'd take that and she'd set it aside. And I finally asked her about it as I got older, and I asked her, what are you, what is that? Why do you do that? And she said, what we do is we always remember our ancestors, always remember our relatives that have gone on to the spirit world, and that we should always acknowledge them by giving them a little water. And in Mother Earth, we have to give her water. And, and so it's kind of like, it's like a cycle. She said it's like the cycle of life. You have to, if you have plant a seed, you have to water it. And so your children are like that, she said. She would make me come stand there with her, and she would, sprinkle the water, and then she'd give me water to drink. And so it was, that was her instruction, And she also said that, she said, water gives life, but water also takes life. And so we have to also, again, part of our honoring and respecting water, when we come to a water, a river, a lake, a stream, if we come to that water, what we have to do is like I said, we introduce ourselves to it, and then we also can make a little offering to it of water, even to offer some more water back to it, or to offer a little tobacco, maybe a little piece of bread, making an offering, giving something for what you're taking. And so, so those are the kind of things that she taught me about. And I hold those near and dear to me. I believe them. I believe in them. I never question why. I never question them. I believe in them. And, for me anyway, I feel like it's, strengthens me and uplifts me whenever I do that. Whenever I do that with the water, then I drink it, I feel really refreshed, rejuvenated, because of that, you give an offering and you receive the blessing that you're seeking from it. And that's the way, my experience that I have with it. So those things that I was taught. I mean, I was one of these children that in the morning, I would wake up in the morning in the summertime. I would wake up, I'd get up, and maybe everybody was still asleep, and it was kind of like a little still, not, the sun wasn't up yet, but I would get up, I would go outside, and I would walk up the road to a place where there was water, a canal, like a canal with water in it, coming from the Colorado River. And I would go up there, and I would go swimming by myself and just enjoy it, no fear, just to feel the water, just to feel that blessing from it. And I would swim around there, and I would lay on the bridge, and whenever I was through, I would go back home. And then all through my childhood, we always went swimming. Every day, all day, we'd be in the water during the summertime. And those are really fond memories I have of my childhood with the water.
Could you please talk about your life next to Colorado River? How it is, or how it was for your growing up there, and for Havasupaid with Colorado River?
Mm-hmm. The part of the Colorado River I grew up on is on the Colorado River Indian Reservation, and the river where it flows, on one side of it is Arizona, on the other side of it is California. And so we were always usually on the Arizona side, on the reservation, and it was undeveloped. It was all in its natural state, and if you go out, we'd go out there. We had a place that was called the Indian Camp, and so in the summertime, families on the weekends would all go out there to the river, and we would, all the families be cooking, and kids swimming in the river and playing, and everybody pretty much, shared their food. Whatever you brought, whatever you cooked, everybody just ate together. And the children played together, It was a really, I always thought of it as a really healthy environment that our families created for us on the river. to go out there and just be out there at the river all day, and everybody swimming or playing. And the parents, the adults would be doing things, maybe playing some kind of games or, telling stories. And so it was really nice. And, before it was turned into a reservation, the original people there were the Mojave people. And they had their camps too. You could see, some of them still had their camps when I was a child. They still had their camps there along the river, where they would just live out in the open like this, And that was how we were. We would make our places. We'd pick out a tree, and that was where that would be my house. A tree, and then have my little, whatever I wanted to put around there, make it my house. And that's how we grew up, around the river and around the area there that was very, natural, not developed, nothing really there, no electricity, no, homes or anything. It was very undeveloped, which was fine and good. It's still like that today, which I'm really grateful for. So, yeah, that's how I grew up.
And the Colorado River today, I think I read that 40 million people depend on it, and we went to see that. You could really see how much lower it has gotten.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Colorado River, it's... right now we're experiencing the drought, because of climate change. And there's, the watershed where that feeds the Colorado River, the snow that's up in the Rocky Mountains, the snow that is usually in abundance. Over the past few years, it hasn't snowed that much, and so the runoff from the snowpack is hardly there, and so, but on the Colorado River, they call them the Colorado River users. So these are all the different people, towns, and everybody that use water from the Colorado River. They extract the water. They divert the river water too, for their use. And so now with the drought and the water shortage that we're experiencing on the Colorado River, is something that they had been warned about before. And but the people who decide about the water use have done what they call over-allocated. They promised or agreed to provide certain places with a certain amount of water. But with the drought, they're not able to meet that demand. So they had before this all happened, they had already over-allocated the water, gave more away than they had. And so now it's like they're in this situation because, the ones who are given, allocated water, and they got some of that. They got that water. They start using that water. Now the water, it's with the water shortage. They don't have that water, and so this is a real serious situation. I believe. They're asking others who have water to give some of their let some of their water use, go and pass it on to some of these areas that have higher water usage demands and need water, but I'm saying, well, if we give the city of Phoenix our water, some of our water, with the thinking that, well, they can use our water until, the drought clears up. But what if the drought doesn't clear up? So you've let some of your water go over here to Phoenix. Now you're stuck with the water you didn't get your the water didn't come back. So now you're left with a water shortage. How are you going to meet the demands of your needs? It's a crazy game. It's crazy. I think that the plan should be that there are certain allocations that need to be honored, and then there needs to be a really good look at water management. How are they managing that water, and making cuts for water usage that really isn't vital. So I think that's one of the things we're probably facing real soon. I'm concerned about that.
Could you please talk about the blue-green waters? That place, I've seen the pictures of some videos of that how it's called, the blue-green waters of Havasupaid there down in Grand Canyon. Could you talk about that place?
The Havasupaid people, they live at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. The area where they live, they used to live all that territory of the whole Grand Canyon area, up on top and in the bottom. That was their traditional land territory. They lived and moved around in there. They live up on top in the wintertime. In the summertime, they moved down to the bottom of the canyon. They have their villages in the canyon. So in the, I believe it was maybe early 40s or so, when the President, Teddy Roosevelt, established the Grand Canyon as a national park. When they did that, then they forcibly removed the Havasupaid people out of the area that they said was going to be the Grand Canyon National Park. So they forcibly removed our people. My family, the Wadahamaji family, my mother's family, my mother's grandfather was the last chief of the Havasupaid people, Chief Wadahamaji. So the Wadahamaji's, who had their camp up near the Grand Canyon, South Rim area, they had their camp there, their village, and then they had another camp further out. But when they were trying to forcibly removing these different camps out of Grand Canyon, the Wadahamaji's refused to leave, and they have continuously occupied that camp and have never left, and were involved in this dispute with the National Park Service to have their rights to continue to live in their traditional camp there. And so they eventually won. So there's a little piece of land, a little village inside there where the national park is, where the Havasupai still have their camp. And so down at the bottom of the canyon, so the people were moved down to the bottom of the canyon. There was one of the villages already, but what they did was they moved all of the Havasupai down there, except the Wadahamaji's, who stayed up on top. They moved them down to the bottom of the canyon, and told them, this is where your land is. This is your reservation. It's 1 mile wide and 3 miles long. That's where they, told them that they would have to stay, that they couldn't come back out and live in their camps anymore. And so that's where they put them. And so they've been there. The thing is down there in that area is a creek. They call it Havasu Creek. And then it comes through there, and then there's different waterfalls, and it's what they call travertine mineral waters that have minerals in it that make it that beautiful blue-green color, like the Caribbean Sea, beautiful color, blue-green, like turquoise. And so that where the waterfalls are, there's several waterfalls there, and they have these pools, the travertine pools, these pools of blue-green water. It's like a paradise. It's beautiful. And I just love it there. I try to go back at least once a year, go down there to go to the water, walk in the village, be there. And they have their gardens there. They grow their corn, they have fruit trees, figs, peaches, apricots, they grow watermelons, different kinds of melons, and green beans, and all kinds of little vegetable gardens. Mostly each family has their own little garden. And then they also have their livestock, their horses. They depend on the horses to go in and out of the canyon or out. See, the only other way out is to walk, which is an 8-mile trail walk from the top of the rim of the canyon down to where the village is. To get to the waterfalls, it's like 11 miles hike. That's the only way you can get down there, on the horses or to hike. Or now they have a helicopter that goes down maybe 2 or 3 times a week, depending on the weather. So that's how you can get in and out. And the Havasupaid people, they have control over who comes in and out of there. So in order for an outsider to come in, you have to have a permit. You have to apply for a permit from the tribe. So they limit how many tourists are coming in. And basically your own safety, to make sure, when they know who's coming into the canyon in case they get lost. Because people do get lost in the canyon. So they monitor, how many tourists come in. And so that's, they still maintain a lot of their culture, the language, the kind of like their basketry and pottery and things like that, their culture that they still maintain there. So, and they have a little school, and they have a lodge.
Could you talk about, please, relationship with springs? I remember recently, I think you went to Idaho with springs, and relationship with springs. I remember recently you went to Idaho to see a spring.
For some reason, all my life I've been, I guess because I'm from the water clan, but for some reason I've been led to to be in a position where I become connected to water. And recently I was invited to go to a spring in Idaho, and there's a hot spring there, but there's also a freshwater spring, and I was invited there. So when I was invited there, I thought, well, it'd be nice. Yeah, I'd like that. It's a lodge, beautiful lodge resort. And I thought, yeah, I'd like that. I'd love to go to a hot spring. I love hot springs. But then I thought, I know there's indigenous people who are from there. That's their homeland. And I thought, well, if I'm going to go there, I feel like it's important for the original people there, to know I'm going to be there. It's kind of like a way of respect. It's their home, it's their land, it's their place, and they must know about the spring. They might have even used the spring, in their history. It might have been a healing place for them, a sacred place. And I know that just because of our history of being forcibly removed away from our homes, our land, traditional lands, I figured that's probably what happened to these people. And these are Shoshone Paiute people. So when I was planning and thinking about whether I was going to go there, I went ahead and started to inquire, who are the tribes that are there, and how can I reach them? So I reached out to one of the Shoshone Bannock tribes there, and they said, well, get in touch with this other band, the Shoshone Bannock tribe, and they live in Nevada. The tribe I reached out to is in Idaho. But they said, no, go ahead and talk to those people. And so I called on one of my nephews and told him I was trying to reach out to somebody there. I figured he knew somebody there that he could tell I'm trying to get in touch with them. And so I told him I was planning this trip. I wanted to acknowledge and show my respect to the tribe, the Shoshone Bannock, and invite them to come to where I was going to be, where the spring is, to come there so I could meet them, and then they could also be able to go to the spring with me. I felt like this wasn't just a visit to a spring for me to go and to get in and physically enjoy. I felt like it was a spiritual intervention, that the spring is the one who is calling and reaching out and letting me know that this is what we need to do, that the spring is calling for the people to come to it. Because maybe the people need help. Maybe it's time for their people to reconnect with that spring. So that's the way I told him. And so I had him reach out and find someone. And he found, the vice chairman of that tribe, the Shoshone Bannock tribe, who then called me and said, who are you? What are you doing? And, I explained to him that I wanted to take time out and have them come and meet me when I get there. And so he agreed, and he got other people. I told him that, maybe there's a ceremony you do. Maybe there's a prayer that you make that has been interrupted by removing them, and the spring is on private property. So I said, maybe they haven't been able to do their ceremony with the spring from since the time they were forcibly removed. So maybe it's time for them to come back to the spring. The spring wants them to come back. So I arranged that. They came. And they came, and the owner of the spring welcomed them when they walked in. And she told them that she was hoping that someday that they would come. And so they were welcomed. And then we went to the spring where the spring actually bubbles out of the ground. And we went there to it. And it was such a beautiful, powerful moment to be there with the spring and seeing the water bubbling up and the steam rising. And the steam was rising, and the Shoshone Bannock elders, they're standing there by the spring, and they're making their prayers and singing their songs. It was so powerful, and my heart was just rejoicing. I mean, it was just filled, with happiness and this love that this is being I'm looking at it as being the reunion of this sacred water with the people who have their origins with it. And so they did their prayers, they did their songs, and it was a real blessing. And when we finished, we had a big feast, and one of the elders, he said, maybe we hope that maybe in the future that maybe we can come back here and maybe we can show them our tribal ID, our card that we're tribal members, and maybe they'll let us go ahead and do our prayers and go ahead and use the water, get into the water. And maybe they'll do that. Maybe there'll be some time when we could have a good, nice gathering here, put up 3 teepees and have a gathering here. Maybe that might come, he said. The next morning, the owner of that property came in. She came and she told them, "You're welcome to come back and use the spring. You and your people, you're welcome to come back." And then she said, "I would really like it if we could maybe have some kind of a gathering here." And so it was like, he expressed his thought, his wish, and the next day the owner says, "Come back, you can have a festival here." And so that's, to me, that is, it's like the actualization of a prayer, manifesting, just like that. And so now I'm, that's something that I'll be working on, is creating that, another opportunity to establish, their connection with that sacred spring. And so it's a big honor to me, And I think sometimes I just go along with whatever moves, like the water, in the way the water wants to move. I just follow it, and it creates these things. I'm working on creating water museums or water exhibits with the tribes. And tribes, there are many tribes that already have museums. But what I'm introducing and bringing to them is for them to create a water exhibit, an exhibit that talks about their history, their relationship with the water. That's in their area, so that the people will know the history. They'll know, you know, like this here, the Colorado River that comes all the way across the state south, all the way down here to Tucson. The young people need to know that's where this water comes from. They need to know about all the work that the tribal leadership put in, years of work, in order for them to have this water here. They need to know that. That's part of their history. That's part of what could be in a water museum exhibit. That's what I'm working on now.
Could you please talk about the water protectors, the grandmothers?
You know, as grandmothers, the Grandmothers Council that I belong to, it's called the International Council of 13 Indigenous Grandmothers. And part of our, in our founding statement, we said you know, as grandmothers, we have a moral responsibility. We have a moral responsibility to take care of our home place. We have that responsibility to keep it in good order. We have that responsibility to, you know, I always say, you know, we're like mama bears. A mama bear protects her den. She protects her children, you know. She maintains it. She doesn't let anyone come in and make a mess of it. And that's grandmother responsibility. And so the grandmothers, we step forward and carry this message that, you know, we must preserve and protect our culture, our earth-based medicines, our, you know, our ways of living, our survival ways, our ways of having a good relationship with all of the creation, the water, the air, the fire, the earth, to have a relationship with the others, life forms, you know, that live on this earth with us and depend on this life here. And that we have to make sure that we're reminding, you know, we're reminding the people of the world that our existence is not just us, but our existence is in keeping a good relationship with all of life on Mother Earth. That's our mission. That's what our work is. That's what we've been doing. And part of that includes, you know, of course, the water, protecting the water, talking about our sacred relationship with the water and protecting it. And, you know, over the years, there have been, you know, this big water movement, big movement of indigenous people who are, you know, standing up and protecting their water sources and raising issues about it and about what is, you know, the damage that is being done to it, you know, and talking about it and voicing them and having demonstrations or walks or marches. And these are water protectors. You know, that was very evident with the Standing Rock, situation, you know, to protect the water. And so the water movement is very much alive, and most of it, if you look at it, the spokespeople are women. And that's what we say, well, women are the water bearers, you know. We're the ones that carried that sacred water in our womb for our children. And so that's why it's so important, you know, for us as Indigenous women to be that voice and the message, you know, the message reminding people of the importance of water.
Could you talk a little bit about water ceremonies?
Water ceremonies are, there's many different ways people do water ceremonies. There's a couple that I do. And the main one that I do a lot of times it's a very basic, simple, ceremony of prayer and acknowledgement of the water and teaching people how to approach it in a respectful manner, to introduce themselves to the water in a respectful manner, and to, have that good relationship with the water in whatever way you're going to use it. And and so that's a ceremony that we do, and part of that ceremony is taking some of the water and pouring it on Mother Earth, making an offering back to Mother Earth, making an offering to a plant, a tree, a little shrub, making an offering, or even taking some of that water for a little child, grandchild, little baby, take that water and bless that child with it, bless that baby with this water. And those are real simple ceremonies. It doesn't require a lot. It mainly requires you to really be sincere about, and in recognizing and respecting that this water is going to give you life. It's going to give you, clarity. It's going to purify you in whatever way you need to be purified, and how you take it, having that attitude of gratitude for it. You feel it that way, you take it that way, that's how you're going to feel. You're going to feel that way with it. And so, that's, that's how the ceremony is so simple. You can do it every time, I always tell people when you get up in the morning, that first water you take, it with a prayer about of gratitude, giving thanks for it, giving thanks for your life, and, for the blessing it's going to give you throughout the day. So take that water, take a drink of water like that, or take a little bit of the water, put it on your heart and put it on your mind, bless yourself with it. First thing in the morning, whenever your first drink of water you take. And so, that's a real simple ceremony. It's a ceremony, but at the same time, it could be even just a movement you do in a mindful manner with that meditation of gratitude for the water. The other ceremony I do is in the Native American church as a water woman in the morning. When in the morning time, there's the time when the woman brings the water in and prays with it. And so I have that honor to do that, to be a water woman and bring the water into the ceremony and pray with it. And again, in that ceremony, it's a matter of making an offering and using a tobacco smoke and making that offering, making an offering again of this, so cedar smoke, and then again making some offering of the water, pouring the water on the Mother Earth again. That's all, again, that's all in a respectful, prayerful manner. And that it's for all of life, everyone who's sitting in there in that ceremony, but not just us, it's all of life, everything. And so, that's the water ceremony that I'm involved in, that I do and practice.
Could you share a water story? Some sort of, maybe like a legend or some sort of water story that comes to you?
I don't know. Can't think of any right offhand. What I can tell you is one time there was this elder. He was in the hospital, and so I went to see him. I went to see him because he wanted to have a medicine, a traditional medicine man come and do a prayer for him. And so he was in the hospital, and so I did an intervention for him where I went in, I talked to him about what it was he was wanting so that I could tell the administration of the hospital that, you know, this is what he wants, this is what will be done, and that he has a right to do that, to have it as part of his health care. And so I went to talk to him about that, and while I was there with him, he was telling me, he told me about how when he was much younger, how at one time he was sent by his grandfather to a place like a mountain, and there was like a cave there, and he went into the cave, and his grandfather told him, you're going to go in there, and you're going to go ahead and go in there, and you're going to pray, you're going to see something in there, you're going to pray. And so he went on in there, and he said he got in there and kept going deeper in, and finally he got to a place, and there was some water there. There was water moving in there. And then he said, he looked, he heard something, and he said, all of a sudden, he said, that water came up, stood up. Like, you know, how a wave is? That came and the water stood up like that in front of him. And he said he went like that, but he remembered his grandfather who told him, you're going to see something, and you're going to pray when you see that. So he said when he saw that, he started his prayer. And he said that water came up, it stood there, and then it came back down and got calm. And he said then he left, but he said that made a believer out of him about, you know, the power of belief, the power of prayer, the power of, you know, listening to an elder and following the direction of that elder, to follow the direction. And that's what he said. And so when he told me that, I thought about it, because something that got put in my mind to visualize it. Anyway, I went and I met with the health administration, and they went ahead and approved him to have his ceremony. And so that was done. Not long after that, I went on a trip up along the California coast. I got to this one place, and I went and I was standing there, and there was the ocean, the waves, and I'm standing there and I'm praying, and all of a sudden this wave came up. It came up and it stood there with the curl like this. I'm standing there looking at it, came up and went like this, and then it started coming back down. But when it came down, the curl closed like that, this mist flew out onto me, and I breathed it in, and it was like I had bubbles inside inside me, bubble, just this energy going through me. And so I had that experience. When he told me about that wave, that water standing up, I wanted to see it. And I got to see that. Another time was when I was in the canyon, hiking from the south rim of Grand Canyon to the north rim. It's a long hike. So we were hiking, got to the bottom, crossed the Colorado River, and started coming back up again. And we got to a place and it started raining, pouring rain. And it was so much rain that it was like waterfalls coming off the cliffs of the canyon. So we're standing on the trail up against the wall and the water's... Anyway, what happened was, after the water stopped, I could hear a rumbling sound, big sound like thunder, rolling thunder, rumbling sound. And we're standing there, we're up high. Down here is kind of, look, all of a sudden I looked, and there was the canyon kind of was narrow, and that all of a sudden I looked, and here there was this wall of water coming through the canyon. It's a wall of water, literally a wall, standing up, and it's going like this, coming through the canyon. Coming, and where we were standing on the trail, that was where it opened up. So when that wall of water came through, when it came to the opening, it spread out. But, like rocks, boulders were rolling in front of it. It was moving rocks and boulders through the canyon. And that was so powerful, a powerful experience for me to see the water like that, a wall of water. I've heard people say, it was a wall of water. I saw that, a wall of water. So yeah, these kind of experiences to me are blessings to see the water in its different, I guess, like different moods, so to speak, on the coast, there's a place where you can go and the water is just, the ocean is just calm. And then you go some more and then you got all the big waves. So I get mesmerized by it when I'm at the ocean, and and there's, the waves at night and the moonlight. I can't sleep. I have to just it's like I'll go outside and I'll stand there and just watch it, meditate with it. So just want to share that. Thank you.
In my Estonian version of the show, in the end, I always ask the same question. I'm going to ask the same one. If water had something to say to us at this time, what would she say to us?
Say it again.
If water had something to say to us this time now, what would she say to us?
Wow. I think she would say, I am life. I think she would say, I love you. I think she would say, I'm giving you everything I have. to give. Those are the things I think she is saying.
Thank you, Mona.
Mm-hmm.